Today, we're going to dive into a single idea that has the power to completely change how we learn, how we teach, and even how we lead. We're talking about the growth mindset. But let's just jump right in with a question for you. Think about some of the conversations you had yesterday. Were your words, maybe without you even realizing it, judging someone's fixed traits? Or were they actually nurturing their development? The answer, well, it might tell you more than you think. So let's start right there with the messages we're constantly sending. Because every single word we use, every action we take, especially if you're a parent, a teacher, or a coach, carries a really powerful message. When you really break it down, almost all of our communication falls into one of two buckets. On one side, you've got this message of judgment, which basically says, you have permanent traits and my job is to size them up. But on the other side, there's a message of growth. That one says, you're a developing person and I'm really interested in your journey. This one little difference is the launch pad for, well, everything else we're going to talk about. Now, these two messages, they don't just pop up out of nowhere. They actually come from two totally different belief systems about ability itself. And that brings us to the core idea here, the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. Okay, so the fixed mindset, this is the belief that our qualities, our intelligence, our talent, how good we are at sports, are basically carved in stone. You've got a certain amount, and that's that. So your main job in life becomes proving you have enough, over and over and over again. But then the growth mindset comes along and offers a completely different story. It's the belief that your basic abilities are really just a starting point. They can be developed through dedication, hard work, and using the right strategies. It totally reframes potential, not as some hidden treasure you have to find, but as something you can actually build and cultivate. So how do we actually put this incredible idea into practice? Well, it's time to get practical. Let's open up what we'll call your communication toolkit. All right, first tool, praise. It is so tempting to say something like, wow, you're a natural at this. But that kind of praise, it focuses on a fixed talent, right? And that makes a person's confidence super fragile. I mean, think about it. What happens when they struggle later? Does it mean they're not smart anymore? Instead, if you focus your praise on the process, their strategies, their effort, the choices they made, that builds real, lasting confidence. Something like, I absolutely loved how you kept trying different ways to solve that problem. See the difference? And this same exact logic applies when things go wrong. Feedback from a fixed mindset, well, it usually ends up either labeling someone, you're just not a math person, or just making excuses for them. But growth-oriented feedback, it's completely different. It's constructive, it skips the judgment, and focuses on the path forward. And that right there is the whole secret. The entire point of this kind of feedback isn't to give a verdict on someone's ability, it's to give them a roadmap for how to get better. It's about empowering them with the knowledge of how to fix the problem. And that is a gift that's way more valuable than any label, good or bad. This way of thinking, it even changes the kinds of goals we set. A fixed mindset goal is usually about proving a talent you already have, like trying to get an A without even studying. But a growth mindset goal, that's all about expanding what you're capable of. The whole focus shifts from having talent to building talent, which, let's be honest, is a much more exciting journey to be on. Now, this toolkit isn't just for you and me talking one-on-one. Nope. It can literally transform entire environments. So let's take a look at how this plays out in the classroom and out on the sports field. When you think about those really amazing teachers, the ones you remember, they are often absolute masters of the growth mindset. They don't lower the standards to make students feel better. Just the opposite. They set the bar really high, and then they give students the tools to actually reach it. They frame subjects as skills you can learn, they give that critical process feedback, and they act like learning detectives, figuring out what's not clicking and then teaching the strategies their students need to finally get it. And for coaches, the shift is just as huge. When you really adopt a growth mindset, the whole game changes. Your focus moves from just the team's win-loss record to your players' actual development. You start asking for full commitment and effort, not impossible mistake-free games. You coach. You don't just judge from the sidelines. And you give your players the respect and the guidance they need to truly get better. So when you kind of zoom out and look at the big picture, you start to realize this is way more than just a few handy communication tricks. It's a fundamental shift in how you see the world. It really becomes a mission. At the end of the day, it all boils down to this. Our job, whether we're a parent, a teacher, or a coach, is to be in the business of developing potential. It's about seeing that spark of growth in everyone and then using every tool we have to help them turn it into a fire.
And that brings us right back to you. Now that you're armed with this understanding of mindsets and messages and feedback, the question isn't really if you can make a difference anymore. The only question left is whose potential will you choose to develop tomorrow? Your child's, your students', your teammates', or maybe, just maybe, your own.